the odds favor Ali in this fight 6-5, if you can imagine. If ever there was a chance to make a score, you had to run to Las Vegas, which I did with my friend, and every time we could put together and put it all on Larry Holmes. Is that like taking the Saudi blood money, though, Lubie? You had to watch one of your idols all time just take an unbelievably ugly beating, and you're yelling in the corner because you have money on it. Come on, Larry! Knock him out! Money is at the root of all evil.
That's pretty evil.
Especially when it comes to imagine that. You're rooting for Ali to get, I mean, well, you were just screaming, step in and stop it, ref, it's a killing.
All right, you weren't saying that. You were saying knock his old ass out.
Nah, we didn't need that. That was the biggest gimme I've ever seen in my lifetime, right? And it's always good to be right in those situations.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
If ever you needed Richard Steele, it was that night, Ali versus Larry Holmes, where Holmes literally, he's got like his left hand out there. He had a great jab, but he wasn't even throwing it. He was just like holding his left arm out there because Ali was all crumpled up and pretty much defeated from the opening bell. And as he's doing this, it was like he was holding off like, you would have a tall older brother holding you off by putting his hand on your forehead. As he's doing that, he's turning to the referee and going, hey, could you stop it? I don't want to hit this guy again. For like 5 rounds that went on. It was sad to see a legendary guy like Muhammad Ali crumpled up in that situation, basically in the fetal position in the corner, waiting for the ref to throw in the towel. I want to say, and I'm probably wrong about this, but I want to say the referee in that fight was Carlos Padilla, who was known for what, Lubie? Known for what? What infamous fight that he refused to stop? And that was the Tex Cobb fight, where Tex Cobb is getting the snot beaten out of him. And was that also Larry Holmes? I think it was Holmes and Tex Cobb. And Cobb is no match for him. I mean, he was an actor out on loan, as Jim Morrison would say. And that was when Howard Cosell said, I'll never do another boxing match again after watching this, because he's screaming at the referee, who was Padilla in that fight, I want to say. And he's screaming, yeah, stop it, ref, stop it. Much like we were hoping that they would wave off the Ali Holmes fight there in Las Vegas to the tune of 6-5, Lubie, which wasn't bad. I forget what we had on it. Probably like $600-700, which was a lot of money back in those times, right? Lubie, you can actually buy some stuff with that. Now you can barely buy breakfast with a stick. 2 people, breakfast. Yeah, give me a stick. All right. You want to refill on that mimosa? That's going to cost you more. All right, welcome to the show. Good to be with you. I am suffering a little bit. I don't know if suffering is the right word. I'm not suffering at all. I'm actually elated, enjoying. I mean, just infused with enthusiasm because, as we've been talking about, great time of the year, is it not, Mike Lubie Lubitz? The onset and the outset of the playoff season. As me fully all in on board. I'm not sure what I'm more excited about, the NBA playoffs or the NHL playoffs, which I do get into every year, as you know, Lubie. I mean, by the time, not that I'm jumping on the bandwagon, I can't tell you that I saw a full NHL game all year long, where, I watched from the time they dropped the puck at the beginning till the bitter end, which in the playoffs, in the postseason, I almost wish. And this seems like it would be hockey blasphemy, would it not? But I almost wish they would institute, not the shootout, but at least go to the 3-on-3 overtime to decide the game, instead of, we had one yesterday that went, last night, went 2 periods of overtime. That's a lot to ask if that happens a couple of times in a series. And then you're going to ask these guys to play 4 bloodbath-like series. Because you would have to say, even though there are no fights really to speak of in the playoffs, you don't see guys getting thrown off the ice for fighting. You do see very physical play, and it seems like they kind of let them play. Do they not? Are the rules a little bit more liberally interpreted during the course of the postseason by the officials that are out there on the ice? They're not calling a very tight game.
No, they don't play hockey.
Yeah.
They don't play. It's crazy.
So anyway, I mean, I don't know. Is your enthusiasm and all dimmed? I didn't find that that was all that devastating of a loss last night. If you were a Panther fan, they had a chance to win the game. They were in the game the entire time. They got down 2-0, and you thought, well, maybe this isn't going to go so well. Then Kachuk with a dazzling goal, as they took advantage of what was one of the few Boston defensive errors in the game. I don't know if it was an error so much as just bad luck. Because as people were saying, and anybody who analyzes hockey says, look, puck takes weird bounces. Anything can happen. You could be seemingly hopelessly getting drubbed in a game, and then all of a sudden you get a fluke goal, maybe another, and you're right back in it. Panthers had plenty of chances last night to get back into that game. The Boston Bruins are extremely adept at fending off teams, especially tough once they have a lead in a game. They only gave up an average, I believe, of 2.4 goals per game for the season, Lubie, which in an age of scoring, I mean, that is really something. It was far and away the lowest goals per game against average by any team in the league. They won more games than anybody else. They scored and tallied more points than anybody else. They have any number of guys that had sensational seasons. And obviously, they're getting great goaltending, which is what you need to win in the postseason. You want to validate, you want to kind of consolidate what happened in the regular season. You don't want to be on thin ice like the Panthers were last year. And I think the Bruins did a lot of that. Although, were they spectacular in this game? Far from it. Were they good enough to win? Yes. Did the Panthers disgrace themselves? I don't think so. And do they look like they're heavily outclassed in this series? I don't know that you could come to that conclusion. We said we had to watch one, but the Bruins were essentially in control for most of that game from the very beginning when they scored a very simple. They had two power plays early in the game. Speaking of calling it tight, two power plays early in the game. They scored on the second one, wide open. Nothing that Alex Lyon could do about that. Then he gives up a really suspect goal. I mean, right off the glove there with nothing impeding him. It wasn't like his vision was being blocked. That was an ugly goal. That second Bruins goal, which turned out to be the difference in the game. But when you saw that, did you start to think, Bobrovsky, Bobrovsky, this is too much for this kid. He's only got 13 games or whatever of NHL experience, or 30 games for a reason. He's been around like 20 years. He broke in with the Gump. And, you're thinking, well, if ever there was a time to crumble, this would be it. Although I don't know that he really had a bad game. I mean, he gave up that goal. The third goal was just kind of an ugly mess, wasn't it? Where everybody's in front of the net there and the puck gets loose and the guy just jams it through. So, I don't know that you put that so much on Alex Lyon. Second goal was a very poor defensive play by him. And other than that, though, he made some big stops in the game. The Panthers' defense is very suspect to and vulnerable to giving up 2-on-1 odd man rushes and breakaways. Are they not?
I'm so confused by this team because they're supposed to be better defensively, but they're not good defensively.
No.
They're worse offensively and not good defensively. Like, what the fuck what is this team? Like, I'm so confused. Like, if you changed your mentality from last year to this year, then you should then be good on defense. But they're not. Like, the kid gets barraged, or maybe he's not a kid. He's like 30.
A lot of point blank shots. He did stop
shots.
a couple of really tough shots in that game.
Like, their defense isn't good. He gets
Yeah.
put in a lot of bad situations, and I'm like, okay, but they're not good on offense either. Like, they get a lot of shots on goal. They're more aggressive, but they're not good shots. Like, they just, like, the Boston Bruins goalie had no trouble stopping what they were throwing.
No, he was like out for a walk in the park, wasn't he?
Yeah, it seemed easy.
Like he was playing as kids, with a little plastic puck in the driveway or something.
Like, you're not wrong. They weren't outclassed. I'm not
No.
defeated. Like, I think they still have a chance to make this a fun series, but I don't know what they're good at. Like, I'm watching them and I'm like, well, this makes sense that they're the A seed, because I don't know what they're good at. They have a lot. They're interesting, but like, what happened to Barkov? What happened to Ekblad? Like, what happened to these guys?
Just got a text from Jim Sarny. Where was old Sasha in the game?
Where has he been?
He was Victor Kozlov. He was a modern day Victor Kozlov. Yeah, you know what's ironic about this? And I remember going. I started going to Panther games with my son. I guess 1995, 96 that season. So 96. He was about 13 years old. Okay, when we started going to hockey games together as one of our activities, sort of late in that 95, 96 season. The Panthers were having a good year. What we had mentioned on Defo on 5, usually a new team coming into any sport, any league, an expansion team is completely fucked. They have no chance. They're getting the raw end of the deal. When the Heat came into existence, right? I mean, look at the scrubs they had on their roster for the most part. Had a couple of representative players, like our good friend Grant Long. They drafted 9th in the first round, and they picked up Ronnie Cycli, who was, I guess, a functional part of their foundation, but certainly was not a guy that you thought, wow, he's going to make you forget about the chief. Um, and, usually they get the raw end of the deal, right? And the Panthers, I mean, by the standards of today, where you have the Las Vegas Knights and the Seattle Kraken, both in the postseason, Las Vegas, 6 years in the league, Lubie, I mean, they have, knocked on the door twice of the Stanley Cup? Did they get to the finals twice, the Las Vegas Golden Knights?
I think they have. Like, I feel like they've been consistently a contender.
Yes. No doubt about it. I mean, they've been extremely good, and in that first year, right? They make a run all the way to the Stanley Cup final, didn't they? As an expansion team, go to the finals or something.
Yes.
Now, that wasn't the case. I mean, the Panthers had to rely on literally, I mean, Muhammad Ali type of trickeration to get to the finals that year. They had great goaltending going in the postseason with the Beezer, who was a proven commodity, who maybe had been on the downside of his career, but all of a sudden. The Florida Sunshine breathed new life into this guy, and he was a monster in the postseason. And ironically, it was April 17th of 1996, Lubie. And I remember I started attending these games with my son towards the end of the regular season. And so we were getting these same seats for the playoff games, and that was a weird, unusual, and, I always love it when your team is involved in a movement, or there's a movement taking place within your team, like Fernando Mania, or when Mark the Bird Fidrich would be on the mound, and the entire country was like, whoa, Fidrich is pitching today. We got to watch this game. Same thing with Fernando Valenzuela. And we had it to a small degree here with the Marlins right around that same period of time. I guess it was later than that, but with Don Trell, right? Where there was Don Trell mania going on, and when he was pitching, you were counting the days. Hey, and people would call talk shows. Only 3 days till Don Trell pitches.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, that was early 2000s, right? Because that was that 2003 team.
Yep.
But around that time, though, here in South Florida, I mean, we had the Year of the Rat going with the Panthers.
That was great.
And people were driving down 95 with their Panther flags on the way to the arena, and they were like, what was the capacity there? 14,703, and every seat was taken. I mean, it was standing room only. It was fantastic. And it was April 17th of 96. The Panthers beat the Bruins 6-3 to begin their run to the Stanley Cup final. This was the first of 3 improbable series wins by the Panthers. Usually, though, I mean, and that was a team that came out of nowhere, right? I mean,
Yes.
we had a bunch of, gritty scrubs that we had been handed in expansion. Even the Beezer was, considered to be somewhat washed up, at that point. It wasn't like he was sitting there in his prime. And it is amazing, that these expansion teams today, I mean, that team, what we had back in 93, when they got started, it literally looked like the 62 Mets, didn't it? I think I saw Marv Throneberry lacing up a pair of skates. So that was improbable, and they did it with this dastardly strategy, which was the Roger Nielsen center ice trap. And we were talking about this on Defo and 5 on 5 Reasons Sports Network. Did we see some elements of that in the Boston Bruins defensively last night? Now, the center ice trap was actually ruled out of the game because it was such an egregious, hideous impediment to any kind of exciting hockey that you could watch. I mean, the league wants, to see you guys flying from end to end and lots of scoring chances and more goals. And meanwhile, if you're going to just muck it down and make sure that nobody gets through the center of the rink, of the ice through the entire game, and it seemed like the Bruins did clamp down on the Panthers in that fashion. Where they're not being aggressive necessarily themselves, but they are doing everything in their power to protect this 3-1 lead that they had. And they managed to make it stick throughout, what was that, the entire third period that they held on? Yeah.
Stupid-ass third goal, right? Because the Panthers had just scored, and I was like, okay, they're building some momentum. If they can get to the third period.
They were in there with a shot, yeah.
It's new life, and I still don't understand how that works. Like, the puck was sitting underlying for a while. Like, don't they blow the whistle? Like, I don't understand why sometimes they stop the play and then sometimes they let guys kick at the puck and hit it because it didn't go right away. They were futzing around there for a while, and then suddenly it went into the net. It's like, well, duh.
I guess as long as it's loose. Yeah.
You couldn't see the puck. Like, I watched the replay 5 times and it's sitting there. You can't see the puck. Suddenly it squirts into the goal. Like, I don't understand why sometimes they stop it and then sometimes they don't. Like, I don't understand what's the delineation. But anyways, it squirted through his freaking legs because I guess he didn't cover it up, and it wasn't sitting anywhere. You couldn't see the puck. You can do what you want, Brian. I watched it.
You're always in an argument with
I
Brian
watched the
Schwartz.
replay 6 times. The puck was not visible. It was sitting under the goalie. He just hadn't cleared it. Yes, he didn't cover it up with his glove. You couldn't see the puck. The puck was under his crotch. And I've seen plenty of times.
A whistle wouldn't have been inappropriate, is what you're saying.
I've seen plenty of times where the puck's under the crotch and they stop the goddamn thing because, again, you're to score, you'd have to mess with the goalie, which is illegal. I've seen the replay 6 times, man. There's no bet that's going to change my opinion. So, anyways, the puck squirts through after like 2 minutes of it sitting under his crotch.
Yeah.
And they go up 3-1 right before the end of the second, and they were up 3-1. And they did look, they're an elite defensive team, and they just shut it down. Like the Panthers literally had been dominating on shots on goal until that point, and they didn't get one shot for like 10 minutes. Look, it wouldn't matter. Like if they went to that thing up 2-1, that goal doesn't matter. You said it. That second goal is what won the game. Once they went to that,
that made a big difference, though. I mean, the 2-goal cushion certainly allowed them to go ahead and maybe change up their approach a little bit. And it seemed like they went Roger Nielsen all the way, something that had been ruled out of the game, something as hideous a strategy as you could possibly employ in any sport, and right up there with the four corners, Dean Smith, where you have to have some kind of legislative intervention by the ruling bodies to say this can never happen again, ever. Dino, my God. But they did make some rules to make sure that teams didn't do this. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to define everything that's going on in a hockey game, but you could see that they definitely had taken the pedal off in terms of their own offensive aggression and decided that they were just going to make sure the Panthers did nothing, which they're very good at. And as you mentioned, I think there was a 9-minute stretch. I saw a graphic 9-minute stretch where the Panthers had 2 shots in the third period. So that wasn't going to get them back in the game, and they weren't able to get back in there. Were they overwhelmingly outclassed in this game? No. Is it possible they could bounce back and win a game 2? Now, both of these games with the Heat and the Panthers are tomorrow night. I think earlier, and Jim Sarni was kind enough to correct me, I said that the Heat played tonight, but they don't play again until tomorrow night. And that, Lubie, is a big differential. It's not very favorable for the Milwaukee Bucks. They do stretch the basketball playoffs out to just an inordinate amount of time that, and they end up finishing up in July. By the time, if your team is out of it, it's hard to sustain interest in the NBA playoffs because they play like every other week. They play another game. But the extra day can't possibly do anything but help the Milwaukee Bucks in their attempt to get Giannis Antetokounmpo into good enough shape to get out there and make a representative showing. Because if he doesn't, then you have, you really have just a great situation if you're the Miami Heat. And Scoop Skolnick's going to join us later on because you can just throw it all at him. I wouldn't hold back at all in this game. I throw everything I had at him. And, you're figuring that you're not getting Antetokounmpo at 100% anyway, if he plays at all. And if you can go up 2-0 on the road, well, guess what, Lubie?
Oh, no, if they can somehow...
Game on, dude, my friend. Game on, dude.
Today, I don't care what psychotic Bucks fans say. That's the thing. Without Giannis, they're not a number 1 seed, but without Giannis, it's not a gimme either. Like... please send me the video. I have not seen an angle that showed the puck sitting there. It doesn't matter anyways. The Bruins defense in third period was ridiculous. The Bucks are going to be game middle. They without Giannis, they are above 500. I don't know if you put Giannis out there at all. Like we talked with Sean Devon yesterday. If you put him out there now, I almost want them to play him because the kind of injury he has, it only gets better not playing. And it may be in the earliest stages where if he rests right now, they could save him. If they put him out there, I think he's only going to make it worse where he may be done. So
my friend.
I'm almost rooting for them to put him out there because all I can see is him tweaking it further. It hasn't been enough time where it's better. So if they don't put him today, then he's gotten these 2 days, and then they don't play the next game for 3 days. So he'll get almost a week, which is the only way that he'll get better. So he probably doesn't play today, which is what
I think they bring in every quack that they can find. They bring in Dr. Savai, even with that cream that he put on Cindy Crawford's face, so she looks like she's 25, even though she's like 72 years old, this woman, and somehow is out there and, is draped all over some cheap furniture that you're tempted to buy just because the woman's gorgeous, right? That guy with the melon, I think they have him working on it. They have Dr. Galea in town. They have just about everybody. Victor Conti, I think, was seen in Milwaukee, flying into the airport there in Milwaukee. And they're going to put everybody that they can on Antetokounmpo, try and get on the play. I wouldn't be wouldn't surprise me based on the reports that you're seeing. They sound more favorable than negative. The reports on Antetokounmpo possibly playing. You never know what to believe, and obviously we don't feel his pain, Louis. It's always an amazing thing when we're trying to determine what a guy is actually. We have no idea. I mean, maybe the guy's fine, and that's entirely possible also. So. We'll see, but certainly a giant opportunity for the Miami Heat. A couple of other things on the postseason, and it's great. Do you have a little playoff fever, Lubie? You seem a little cynical about this whole thing because you're worried that your local teams are not going to fare well. You already have the Heat getting crushed, regardless of whether Antetokounmpo plays.
Oh no, I think the Heat. I'm reserving expectations for tonight.
You're such a great fan. I love it because you always are pessimistic.
The Heat have just struggled all season in this spot. Like the games that the Heat get a break. Like they beat the Sixers with Embiid.
Giant opportunity here. Yeah.
And Embiid doesn't play the next game and they lose by 20 to the same Sixers team. Like they've done that all year look, the Hawks game, the Hawks, to me, they play better than the Bulls, right? They play the Hawks, are non-existent, look like trash. They play a Bulls team that is actually better right now. And they come out in the fourth quarter and they pull away. Like, I don't know what to do with this Heat team. Like, look, game 1 versus the Bucks.
Well, one favorable trend might be that all of a sudden, late in the season, they upped their shooting percentage from three-point range. And in the last couple of games, they've been outstanding from three-point range, including shooting 60% in the opener against the Bulls. And that's something that they just simply weren't doing early in the year. And in fact, throughout most of the season, it was one of the all-time great mysteries, right? I mean, you were looking for Robert Stack to come out of the, the runway there, and in a cloud of smoke, because it was unsolved mystery that the Heat all of a sudden couldn't shoot a lick. This was the one thing they were good at. They had 5-6 guys that could shoot 3-pointers, and all of a sudden it's Brick City. So if they've corrected that, which seems to be a curve that is trending in the right direction, or was towards the end of the regular season. Then they might find themselves in pretty good shape here to go toe-to-toe with Milwaukee. They somehow steal a win tomorrow night on the road. I don't know what would be stealing, but if they can find a way to come away with a victory, wow, what a shocker that would be. I mean, most people had the Milwaukee Bucks. I would say the majority of people that we've talked to throughout the season and heading into the playoffs, Lubie, most of our basketball analyst friends out there had the Bucks just winning the championship, saying that they were far and away the best team in basketball this year. And, I don't know that, it's easy to make that comparison, especially with some of the Western teams that we didn't see a whole lot of, like the Denver Nuggets. Did the Denver Nuggets ever get television exposure? I mean, are they only on like NBA TV, when they play the second game of a late night doubleheader?
They get a lot of national games. They're just on the late night, so I don't watch them. I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but
I think the Lakers are the only team in the Western Conference. Golden State and the Lakers, which Golden State now finds itself on the ropes a little bit. Although, I mean, was that not to be anticipated? They were horrible as a road team. It seems unfathomable that a veteran team that's won championships, what do they have, 4 titles altogether? Golden State Warriors with this Steph Curry configuration.
Yes.
And, as evidence, I mean, the only reason I know that is because of the commercial for Subway or whatever it is that
this is the one where he's showing the rings. Yeah,
where he's showing the rings, and you're thinking, all right, that's pretty good achievement there. Modern day sports, the way they're configured, where it's tough to keep teams together with free agency and all the different things that rip away at the core of a team. That you don't see these kind of, you're not going to see 11, 12-year dynasties anymore. That's a veritable certainty, but. I mean, they were horrible on the road. You would think that they might be able to correct that against, a Sacramento Kings team that has no playoff experience, 0.0. I don't know. I mean, they may have some guys that have been in the postseason. I'm sure they do. But, most of these guys are sniffing it for the first time, and so is the city, which, were their fans crazed? I mean, you talk about playoff fever. That was some atmosphere that they were contesting that game in, again, last night. And Sacramento comes out on top, 114 to 106. Draymond Green gets ejected in the game. Yet another, sort of bozoic incident where he stomps on Sabonis, who had grabbed his leg. And
walk away, like.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's always some ugliness with Draymond Green for some
That's
reason.
the thing. Like they lost a title because of his. I get LeBron did what LeBron did that time. They always catch the guy who retaliates. You know that.
Yes.
Like, especially when you're drained. It's like the Rasheed Wallace thing. Half the time, Rasheed Wallace probably didn't deserve text, but you have a reputation. Once you have that reputation, they're watching you. Just grow up. He's been in the league like 40 years. He's half the player he used to be. So you're not going to get benefit of the doubt. Like, it's just dumb. They were still in the game. They had a chance to win and even the series up like that. That's just stupid. The way that whole thing went down. And I get it. Yes, he was antagonized. Okay.
Yeah.
You're an adult. Move on.
It was weak, all the way around. Sue Bird in that commercial, by the way.
Yes.
What is that for? Is it for some telephone service?
It's Subway. I think it's Subway.
Oh, is it Subway? Really?
Yeah, I think it's Subway. Steph does. I think it's Subway. Is it not Subway?
No, they're all in the same. I mean, I guess they're just using the same crew in all commercials now. Barkley, Sue Bird, Steph Curry, Jeter.
I think it's Subway.
Yeah, I mean, you're watching one of those, commercials for some prescription drug or something, and during the news, and there's Jeter, and all of a sudden, we didn't know that he had, irritable bowel syndrome. You know what? When I used to go to bed. All right, so Philadelphia also beats Brooklyn. Does Brooklyn win a game? Do they win one of the two games that are coming up? How do they do this? Do they do 2-3-2? I don't think so.
I think
Isn't that reserved for the finals? 2-2, 1-1-1?
1. Yeah.
Okay. Does Brooklyn come up with a win on their home wood?
Think
They were in these games. They got blown out in the first game. They were in this game last night against Philadelphia. Had the lead at halftime. And, and then the third quarter, Philadelphia kind of asserted itself, started making some shots. And the Brooklyn Nets eventually faded away. Got to give them a lot of credit for having, any impetus at all here and any kind of significance in the postseason. Do they win a game in Brooklyn? I'm going to say yes. They win one of the two games in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I think
What
they'll
do
win a game. I mean, the Sixers to sweep a team takes a certain resolve. Like you can be the best team in the league, and usually you'll fall asleep for one. And we saw the Nets have a lot. They don't have a superstar, but they have a lot of depth, and they have a lot of guys that can do different things. Where if they put it all together for one game, I can see Bridges going off, and I can see Dinwiddie going off. That they get a game. Like I would have picked this series from the beginning, a 5-game series. So I mean, it's just on pace for that.
Holy Connor McDavid, too. Did you catch? I happened to wake up and catch the end of this LA Kings Edmonton game.
We're promoting the crap out of it during the Panther game.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it turned out to be a great game. It went overtime. The Kings tied it up inside, with I think it was somewhere inside the final 2 minutes. It might have been with seconds to go that they tied the game. They were down 2-0 at one point. Edmonton had lost 6 straight series openers. The Edmonton Oilers. For some reason, they never win game one, and they did it again last night. They fell on their face as the Kings get a power play in overtime, and they cashed that in, and they won it 4-3. They were down 2-0. They might have even been down 3-1 in that game. I think they were. And they came back, tied it up late in regulation, and they stole one. They literally stole one on the road against the Edmonton Oilers. That had to sting. Carolina beat the New York Islanders 2-1. I would imagine the Hurricanes would be favored in that series and open up with a victory. And Minnesota beat Dallas in double overtime, 3-2. They really, I don't know, Lubie. Wouldn't you just rather see these games end more quickly? I know the sudden death thing is very exciting, but when they go into like 3 periods of overtime, does that not, after a while, isn't it cruel and unusual? It's kind of like, Bud Selig's view of the All-Star game, where you got outfielders coming into pitch. And you're thinking, we're already in the 15th inning. Let's find a way to end this. Should they suspend the tradition of, a lot of people would start screaming, hockey purists. Are there any hockey purists out there? Or are they all hockey purists?
First
don't want to see any change.
They're all hockey purists. A second, I think they found the solution because, again, we talk about this in soccer, a sport that we don't watch a lot. So real football.
Well, the conclusion to a soccer game with penalty kicks is a joke. I mean,
they hate when people like us jump in because they love their sport the way it is, and that's good for them. But I hate the penalty kicks. I think it's stupid. And NHL used to do that in the regular season, and then they do this. And my problem is, and it is sudden death, but my problem is they don't score. Like I remember watching some games that go to 4 overtimes, and these guys their shifts go down to like 45 seconds.
I mean, after a while, you're asking a guy to play 2 hockey games in the same night.
I like what they do in the regular season, and I don't know why they wouldn't extend that. It doesn't bastardize the system. It feels like
At least it's hockey. Yeah.
you get hockey, but you get action, and it rarely goes to the shootout. And like usually when they do that 3-on-3, within the first 10 minutes, someone's scoring something because it's just back and forth and back and forth. But guys are at least still,
And it's exciting for the fans, too.
it's exciting, it's quicker, and it still feels like hockey. Whereas this stuff, like playoff hockey is great.
Maybe one overtime period regulation style and then go to this,
I
mean, you don't want the teams. That was one of the problems before when they before they adjusted the overtime and the way they conducted was that teams didn't really have any incentive to score. They just wanted to stay in it,
yes.
and they didn't want to lose necessarily there, so they ended up going to the shootout, and it was like that became self defeating. The whole system, yeah. Nobody wants to stick around for the stupid shootout. It was always a waste of time. All right, the Marlins winners over San Francisco yesterday. What do we make of this Marlins team, Lubie? Jorge Soler, who we have been dismissing as being one of the worst acquisitions in the history of modern American baseball by Kim Ng, who had some questionable acquisitions that she made last year. It wasn't exactly like she was Branch Rickey in her first year as the first female general manager in any professional sport. She brings in Avisail Garcia, bust. Brings in Jorge Soler last year, bust. I don't think there was any other way to look at it. And it didn't seem like anything she did was coming to any favorable kind of a conclusion. This year, trades, for Louis Arise, who is tearing it up, hitting .455 so far on the season, and looks to be a legitimate hitter. He won the batting title last year with the Twins. That certainly gives him all kinds of credibility in that category. You need some bats in the order that can actually make contact and stimulate some kind of offensive push. Even if you're going to manufacture runs or whatever you're planning on doing. Soler providing power so far this year with 5 home runs. He had a big one yesterday, a pinch hit home run, and the Marlins win. They're now 9-8. I don't know. I mean, they're exceeding my expectations at this point, I would say, because I figured they were going to just flounder through the early stages of the season and have the usual, maybe raise a little bit of a gallop somewhere in August. And, then when you were debating, I asked Skippy, my dog, if he wanted to go to the Bark in the Park night. And he said, what, to see that Drek? I said, they're giving away free bones. What are you talking about? And he was like, nah, I don't know. The stadium, it's in a bad area there. I don't want to schlep down there at rush hour. Skippy turned down a chance to go see a ball game. Unbelievable.
Look, they're not killing it, but that's the thing is you talk about, you can't win in the early part of the season, but you can ruin a season in the early part.
Oh, no doubt, yeah.
That's what they usually do. They usually suck to start the season where even when they find their sea legs, it's too late. So if they can hover around 500 for the first month, that is a big win for this club because
I would say, yeah.
They're a young club still. So if they can build any momentum or any confidence at all, look, the Phillies are struggling. The Nationals are struggling. The Mets haven't set the world on fire. They're playing better, but they're not great.
No.
And they've played decent against these teams where they usually struggle. This first month is really about just being around 500. If they can be around 500, Alcantara's going to find his way. Rogers is pitching better. Luzardo looks like the real deal.
Yeah, he's come around.
Got something from Cabrera. Arise is hitting. Chisholm's woke up. Garcia's playing better. He's not good, but better.
Garcia's a total loss. Sergeant Garcia would be better out there than Avisail Garcia.
Well,
Zorro guy.
Soler's playing better. They seem to be finding their way out. It's just
who knows?
Got to be here. You can't go through this 8-game losing streak. That's the problem with them this time of year.
Yeah, and they're prevailing, I guess, in one-run games this year so far. So they've had better luck there. They were horrendous in that situation last year, to the point where it was such an aberration that it's hard to conceive that anybody could ever have that same kind of bad luck. Where some of that has to be attributable to just having nothing going your way. Kind of like, how Mike Mayo was describing his whole thing with all of this flooding that was taking place here in South Florida, which, by the way, today is going to be like Chamber of Commerce weather.
Oh, thank God.
There.
It's been raining way too much.
Yeah. I got caught up in a little rain on my walk of life yesterday, but it didn't bother me. It wasn't like that torrential, pounding rain. So you're thinking, this ain't so bad. It's supposed to be just absolutely beautiful today, which is great. And so far, I mean, for the local teams, guess we have a day off from the anxiety route with the Panthers and the Miami Heat. I thought the Heat, for some reason, were playing tonight, but then you should realize it's the NBA.
Yeah, it's Wednesday. I thought it was today too. I was that then yeah, we probably will see Giannis if he's getting an extra day now. I didn't realize.
Yeah.
I really thought they played today. Like they usually don't did that extra day until they travel. That's weird that they're already doing the extra day. They really are trying to stretch this shit out. Jesus.
I mean, they capitulate totally to the demands of their partners in TV. And so you have, I mean, is that a good break for the Miami Heat? I would,
Oh, it's bad.
I would think not. Yeah.
That's bad. You want to keep playing. You finally got Bam woken up that fourth quarter. Giannis, literally, it's all about rest. So him getting that extra day, I don't see how he doesn't at least give it a go with an extra day. I mean, he missed the whole game. They took his ass out right away. Well, they should have taken him out right away. They kept him in for a little bit longer, which was stupid. But then once he was gimpy, they took him out the whole second half, and he's going to get an extra day. That's annoying.
Victor Conti, my friend. You're going to see him in Milwaukee. You're going to see old Vic. Balco Labs, who came back and actually, made a little bit. I mean, was he making an honest living? As he got into boxing and was working with a couple of fighters of some significance and had them like resurrected from the grave. Is that any surprise, right? Guys whose career appeared to be over came back in their 40s and won championships with Victor Conti as their physical therapist. What form of therapy was he using? This guy had more syringes than Timothy Leary, right? I mean, unbelievable. All right, and the Boston Marathon was yesterday. Speaking of Mayo, I don't know. Is this a bad thing? I keep having this picture of Mike Mayo in a pair of like cutoff shorts running marathons with a tank top.
I'm not gonna have that image, but I am impressed that he did it. I would never even venture a try at 13 miles.
What the hell? How do you even get ready to do that? I mean, I used to run, I guess, like 4 miles a day at one time.
Good for you.
I was in good shape. I was in my 20s, and I'd go out for a jog. I could run to 4 miles, but any further than that, man, I mean, it was collapse city. No, at that point, I mean, should you not dive right into a 6-pack of your favorite beer?
I've worked out a lot in my life. There have been times where I've worked out 5 days a week. I've really been into it. Never been a runner. I will do minimal cardio just because it's a part of working out. Never got it. You get into it. No, I don't get into anything. I don't want to run.
But I mean, how do you build up to running like 13 and a hook? That's 13.2 miles. I give these people all the credit in the world, but don't you have to be somewhat, I mean, bordering on criminally insane to even attempt it?
Yes.
Zdeno Chara is running in the Boston Marathon. Chara, remember this giant guy? I remember going to a game and he was up against the glass there in warm-ups. Chara, when I was, going to a Panther game, and I'm thinking, wow, that guy is a fucking giant. For a hockey player, he was 6'8". Well, he still is, I guess. He hasn't shrunk any. Is that a Jewish tendency only, where you are formerly like 5'11", and then all of a sudden you're 5'9"? Or is that typical of all people that unfortunately are afflicted with a little bit of a dose of old age there? Been slapped around a little bit by Father Time. Chara is running in the Boston Marathon. It seemed to be a very uplifting event. It was the 10-year anniversary of the bombing. There were some very touching stories about people who, had been injured in the bombing that were still living and, had made radical adjustments in their lives for losing limbs and things like that. Just a horrible, I mean, remember that day, Lubie? I mean, how depressing was that?
I remember we were doing shows. It was crazy.
Yes. Yeah, we were trying to figure out what the hell happened there, as were the police. And, that was just, a wicked tragedy. I remember, I mean, it's Any Given Sunday, right? What was that? Black Sunday. That was the movie, not Any Given Sunday. Black Sunday with Bruce Dern. Is that the name of the movie, Black Sunday?
I think so.
Where he's flying the blimp. He's going to, take out everybody at the Super Bowl. I mean, that was always a concern. Like, when is something like this going to happen at a sporting event? And there it was. Where, I mean, you've had tragedy, occur during sporting events like the earthquake during the World Series. But and nothing like that, an act of violence and terrorism And that was one of the most painful stories. I mean, right up there, Stone and Douglas. I mean, where you're on the air, I happen to be on the air broadcasting during 9/11 and the attack. We were on live, right, going, what the hell? And then it's just stunningly tragic, the things that happened. But very inspiring stories. How these people do it, Libby. Would you have a tendency to sulk? I mean, some asinine act of terrorism and just a horrendous horrific thing happens, and you're just walking by the finish line or maybe even finishing up the marathon yourself, and all of a sudden you lose like your right leg. And in this case, there was a story depicted on the news last night about a woman, and she actually was a dancer, lost her right leg in this bombing of the Boston Marathon 10 years ago, and had come back and was living a very inspiring life, Louis. I mean, those are good stories that come out of those kind of events. Also, I mean, unfortunately, this one was, laced with a hideous tragedy. But good stuff all the way around. Yeah, had a lot of people running for good causes and all of that. I'm amazed the number of people that participate and finish these various marathons, Libby. Where do you find that many people that can do it? 26 miles, 385 yards.
Well,
26 miles.
Sarni, we talked about a lot of people. It's like a dream. Like they work all year, they work their lives to get to do that. I'm from here. I've never talked or thought about the fucking marathon. Like,
Never. Inconceivable.
Yeah. It's like a dream. It's like a lifelong goal. I'm gonna do it. I'm not judging you. I'm from here. Like we don't give a shit about the Boston.
This is Diana Nyad type of stuff, though. Where you end up like with a jellyfish on your head. I mean, how do you build up to that? I got to give. I keep having this vision of Mayo though, chugging along there with like the Ethiopians, out there in the lead pack, running on his way to do another lunchbox show.
I'm thinking of a different guy then. He probably looked very svelte compared to the Mayo we know now.
I think he's going to get back in shape. I really do. I think he's eventually something's going to happen.
Gotta be a way to eat and also be in shape. People do it. We just have to find.
Bourdain wasn't especially heavy, was he? I mean,
he ate a lot of crazy shit and a lot of food. So there's got to be a way to, figure it out. He hasn't yet.
Guy Fieri has a little bit of gelt to him.
No, he's a big dude.
Girth, I guess it would be. You got plenty of gelt at this point. I mean, he opens up a chicken shack, he makes a zillion. All right. So yeah, Boston Marathon, and again dominated by the Kenyans, as this guy Evans Chebet ends up winning a back-to-back Boston Marathons. Pretty impressive. And there's some prize money involved now, right? I mean, it's not like they're doing this for nothing. Yeah, I think you make a couple $100,000. And Helen Obiri, another Kenyan woman. So it was the Oaks Derby double there of Kenyans. And you would have cashed on that. The exactas got blown up. There were no Kenyans in the second positions in those two races. It is amazing to me how the pack will stay together for like 25 and a half miles, and there are like 4 or 5 people all running together, and then all of a sudden one person just sprints away, and the others are like, what resolve could you call on after running 25 miles? Do we have any Americans that, I mean, what, Marty LaQuarrie, was he Marty LaQuarrie? Is that how you pronounce it? LaQuarrie?
I don't know that name.
Was he like in the marathon? He was like a famous American long distance runner.
Okay.
Can you think of anybody? I mean, there had to be some others along the course of time there that were famous long distance runners from America. You didn't have too many. We, I mean, I was amazed to see an American woman up there. This woman, her last name was Bates, I guess.
Do you know Bill Rogers? I don't know.
Bill Rogers, yeah, he was big.
Good for both of you. I don't know that name.
Yeah. That it? We only had like 2 guys?
Yeah, I was going to say, we haven't had an American great runner that I think of since Michael
Jim Fix ever running these marathons? The guy with the grape nuts? No? How ironic was it that he dropped dead while he was jogging? That's unbelievable. At a young age, too, right? He was gargling with grape nuts every day, and all of a sudden, it turns out maybe that wasn't good for you. Maybe it wasn't as good as you say. Why am I laughing at the guy checking out? I mean, he had a heart attack while he was running. All right, so that was a great event yesterday. Chara being in it was fantastic. And then you had the big news in the NFL was Jalen Hurts getting a $255 million deal from the Philadelphia Eagles in a contract extension, 170 some odd $1 million guaranteed. And I'm thinking, does Jalen Hurts even make it into the top 5 of quarterbacks in the NFL?
No, no.
Is he a top 5 quarterback? Would you take Jalen Hurts over? I mean, look, you're going to go what? Mahomes, Burrow.
Better. I mean, Tua's better than him. He had a really good year.
You
But
have Tua over Jalen Hurts.
most people do. I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at the season, yeah, I mean, Tua was a top 5 quarterback most of the year until he got hurt. Like his issue is health. It's not. You question his play. Most of people don't. When he was playing,
He was looking great early in the season. I would not question. I was happy for him. I'm a fan of Tua Tagovailoa. I hope he works out. I really do.
yeah, they hit a rough patch, but that's when the offensive line started to struggle. When the offensive line was competent, Tua was a top 5. Was playing like a top. Fine, you want to say top 10? He's playing like a top 10 quarterback. Hurts put up really big stats, but the minute that they limited his running, Hurts was a one-trick pony and was So
Remember Teal Green though?
yes,
When Jimmy drafted Teal Green, and everybody was talking about, well, and he's a little fragile for the NFL. And I remember thinking at the time and arguing with people on the air, saying, well, you know what? You say he's injury prone, but look at the injuries. They're all like, kind of nagging, nothing sort of things, right? But guess what? Teal Green never amounted much as an NFL player because he had all these nagging injuries all the time.
yeah, so that's Tua's, and that's why I don't know where you put him in. That's fine, but I'm talking about compared to because that's the thing. Hurts hasn't gotten hurt yet, but the way he plays, look, they've lost offensive linemen from this team. They've lost some players because once you go to a Super Bowl, things change. You lose people. People want to get paid. So I presume they're not going to be the same team. It's going to be more on him. We'll see because that's the thing. He was successful because he didn't have to do everything. That team was fucking loaded.
Yeah.
When he has to do more, look, even Russell Wilson, who was legitimately great, the minute it became his team, you saw their success slide. I don't think Jalen Hurts was ever Russell Wilson. So I'm just waiting to see what he is when it's on his shoulders. But that's the going rate for a quarterback now. He's not a top 10 quarterback. I can go through a whole bevy of names that are better than Jalen Hurts.
Would you rather have Herbert? You'd rather have Tua, so you must rather have Herbert.
Oh, no, Herbert's better. Herbert, Burrow, obviously.
Would you take Aaron Rodgers over Jalen Hurts right now?
Yes, I would take Aaron Rodgers over Hurts still.
Would you take Allen over
Allen is better than Hurts.
Jalen Hurts?
I would say there's okay. You want to really do this? It's Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert, Allen. I would still do Rodgers over Hurts. I would take Tua over Hurts.
Wow.
I'm then you look. You want to put him in that second half of the top 10, fine, just because there's not a lot of good quarterbacks anymore.
Right, that could be. Yeah.
The league is sort of bereft of quarterbacks.
So if you're representing Joe Burrow right now,
oh no, that's the thing.
You have to be planning some kind of a thing where what are they buying residences already in Monte Carlo to find some kind of tax shelter for this guy? He's going to make like $300 million, no? When they have to renegotiate his deal,
I think he's going to make like 400 or 500. Oh yeah, where they're in the 250s. I think he's going to make I think he may get 400. I think he's going to get some stupid ass contract.
My God,
they're going to do like a Mahomes where he'll go for like 10 years.
Yeah,
they're not going to do 5 years with him. They'll do like 10 years, so it'll be like 4. It's going to be nuts, whatever he gets.
Well, I mean, it does set a bar out there. I mean, as Lamar Jackson continues to try to
Lamar Jackson,
get a deal.
Hurts. Lamar Jackson's better than Jalen Hurts.
You take Jackson over Hurts.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm tough on Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson's better than Jalen Hurts. He's an MVP. I mean, so that's at least 7 guys that I would take over Hurts. And I'm trying to not do this on air, go down every roster and pick every quarterback in the league. So if you want to put him 8, you can put him 8 if you want, and that's fine.
It was a staggering contract. You would have to say you wouldn't. You would figure if they were signing an extension and there was a little, I mean, it wasn't like they were under massive pressure to sign this guy right away, was it? I mean, he still had time left where they would be in control of his deal. So they really did richly reward Jalen Hurts for a hard battle that he fought. I mean, this was a guy that was benched in a national championship game not that long ago, right? By Nick Saban while he was playing at Alabama, and that's. He might have been one of those guys. If he was inclined to sulk Lubie, he might have been one of those guys that just sulked off into oblivion. And instead, he worked his way back and now has one of the bigger contracts. I don't know if it's the biggest ever. Seems like everyone that comes out is the next biggest ever. But richly rewarded for his dedication to the game of football.
Oh,
All right,
Lawrence, I like Trevor Lawrence more than Jalen Hurts. I like Trevor Lawrence more than.
Oh yeah, Trevor Lawrence. We forget about him too.
Yep, I like him more than Jalen Hurts. And it's curious. Right now, he's better than Deshaun Watson. But if Deshaun Watson get his act together, I would put him at 9 if you want. So he's a top 10 quarterback. So he's getting
top 10 quarterback, getting $50 million a year. Nice.
That's what they get.
It's good money. All right, so we're coming back with more. Speaking of money, you can make some money at Hialeah Park. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, you're in the casino there, and people are high-fiving. It seems like they're partying all the time. Does it not, Lubie? You've been around that casino.
Yes,
The Royal
sir.
Reels, I mean, the Lightning Lotto, all of the different Vegas-style games you can play. Yeah, you got craps, you got roulette, blackjack, whatever you want. I mean, you want to play the slots, you can do it. I like that quick pick machine a little bit. Penny quick pick, although it isn't necessarily as much fun to play at other casinos as it is at beautiful Hialeah Park. And I like my video poker too. So whatever it is that your fancy is, they have it in the casino there. And when you get a player's card, they reward you with a generous allotment of free play and all kinds of different discounts on things from Junior's Bistro and the fine restaurants they have there. Great food and drink options all the time, and not at ballpark prices. Party atmosphere coming up. I mean, the weekends are absolutely unbelievable when it comes to just creating a festive vibe so that you feel like you're alive. Get busy living or get busy dying, right out of Shawshank Redemption. If you want to get busy living, visit Hialeah Park. Visit their website. See what's going on there at hialeahpark.com. You're going to love it. The Champion Simulcasting Room, great for the classics that are coming up. You have the Kentucky Derby just a couple of weeks away. I guess, we're 3 weeks from the Derby? Somewhere in there. It was like 3 weeks from last Saturday.
The first weekend of May. When is it?
First Saturday in May. Yeah, I guess it's like May 5th.
Like 2-3 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, coming up right around the corner, and great place to take it in there and share in the atmosphere, the kind of feeling that you get when you are at Churchill Downs. You still get that when you walk into the grounds there at Hialeah Park. Just an added feature of all the great things that are happening from a gambling standpoint. Horses, poker, casino games, whatever you want to do, it's all happening at beautiful Hialeah Park. All right, we're coming back with more. Scoop Skolnick going to join us. We'll get into this Heat series against the Bucks, and also we'll find out what's behind this resurrection of the Miami Heat, who looked like absolute dog meat against the Atlanta Hawks just a short week ago, and all of a sudden find themselves
It's a week ago today.
Yeah, in a commanding position there against the Milwaukee Bucks with a chance to go up 2-0. We'll see what Scoop knows about. I don't know. Does anybody really have any further details about this Antetokounmpo thing, or I mean, that's just an answer we're not going to know until tomorrow night. What do you think?
They're reporting they're doing everything they can to get.
The reports are very favorable for him playing.
They're reporting they're doing everything they can to get him out there. I think if you have that extra day, I understand why they're saying that.
Yeah.
To me,
if the game was tonight, you would think. I mean, the guy's got a stiff back. It's probably not going to get any better by tonight, right?
Oh, it makes it worse. It makes it worse. And that's the thing is, if he gets that extra day, you can work on it. And look, again, it might have been a slight strain, and he probably could have played that game. But again, they're like, screw it, we can afford to lose one game. Let's rest him. If that's the case, then he probably plays Wednesday.
Let's see. We'll see what happens. All right, well, find out. We'll get the scoop from Scoop Skolnick. He's going to join us in the second hour of the program. Glad you guys are with us here on South Florida Live. Jeff DeForest and Mike Lubitz, and we'll be back with more in a moment. Now that it's 7:55.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched, steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Recently realized it's not just hurricane season that can hurt us. Any time of year, things can happen to your home or business. And the insurance company can be your friend, but they also can be your enemy. Horizon Public Adjusters, Justina Testa, are here for you to help this process go so much easier. Before you call the insurance company, call Horizon Public Adjusters and Justina Testa at 954-809-8752. Either way, if they can get the right guy to fall, like, could be a coup. So there's a few guys around that area that actually could be really good if they get the right guy, honestly.
It's now time for the Defo Show.
You would have fit right in at that period of time. WIOD was obsessed with draft shows. I guess QAM, the same thing happened there. These are radio stations here in South Florida where it was crazy. Joe Zagacki kind of, made a cottage industry out of the pre-draft show. And we would put together, Lubie, this was back in the day where nothing was saved by computer. And so you had these racks of, what used to be 8-track cassettes. And, the cart machine, was a big factor there. And you would have all of these different recordings on separate 8-track carts that you would plug in and play at the appropriate time. And then Johnny said, it's really going to be a good ball game tonight. You play it. Well, you know what? It's going to be a really good ball game tonight. That kind of thing. And we would have a feature on virtually everybody that was potentially going to be drafted in the first round and even into the second round, and especially targeted players that you thought that the Miami Dolphins might have their eyes on, going as far into the draft as the second day. But that would have been great. That would have fit right in that analysis there, where if you can get a guy who could be a guy,
then maybe you found a guy
who could fall into your lap, you might have found a guy. And that, in essence, was what everybody was saying the entire time, because nobody knew what the hell was going on. It was literally insane. I remember, we always were sort of deflated, were we not?
Yes.
The only guy I remember people getting really excited about that the Dolphins drafted during the time that I was doing draft shows, and literally hours and hours on the air with people coming up to you. The Mad Dog Jim Manich was often a partner of mine on these programs, although everybody, it was like the whole staff had to be working on it. It's kind of like, I don't know, when a newspaper would have some special section, everybody better turn something in. You had to have an article or, some kind of participation. I mean, we even would impose on, and it was hard to get this guy at that stage of his career to come out and be a participant. But even the great Rick Weaver, I think, would participate. Well, you know what we need? We need a a couple of guys. No, Rick, it's not a game, man. We're talking about a potential draft pick. I remember, though, the place went nuts when the Dolphins drafted Randall Hill with, I want to say it was the last pick. Was it the last pick of the first round of the draft that year? Could have been Randall Hill. And Drew Rosenhaus was relatively green, in terms of being a big high-profile agent. I mean, people were aware of who he was, and he had a lot of guys that he had signed. I don't know what the connection was exactly there, but I think, Drew was even matriculating a couple of classes. Was he not? What do they call that? Not matriculating. What do they call that? When auditing a couple of classes, right?
Yeah, auditing. Yeah.
Yeah, like he was in the back of, whatever, course that Jimmy had, got these guys to excel in. And there he was. And Randall Hill got drafted by the Dolphins, and everybody thought it was going to be great. And he never did anything for the Dolphins.
No.
He held out. Rosenhaus held him out. Remember? And Shula got pissed off. He hated the whole. I mean, the league had all full control. They literally had their thumbs on the jugular of players. The players had zero options, which, what option do you have now except that you already know pretty much what you're getting paid because they got the whole slotting thing going, and they stick to it in the National Football League.
Yes.
That's one of those unwritten rules that you're looking at and go, well, wait a minute, why doesn't somebody bust that up? But you can't do it. And so with little leverage, they were holding out. And I remember Shula with disgust, when everybody would ask, hey, what's going on with Randall Hill? And he would be out there at the St. Thomas facility where they were practicing in this dump of a facility. And it would be 1,000 degrees outside. Everybody schwitzing. Shula would just put his guys through some torturous thing, where they, surprisingly could not run for 12 minutes, professional athletes. We were just talking about running a marathon, right? 2 hours and 5 minutes, the guy ran 26 fucking miles.
Yep.
And then you would see like Ed Newman puking after running for 5 minutes, and you're thinking, really? I mean, professional athletes, and they can't run. A 12-minute run was like the biggest torture that you could possibly inflict on these guys. And then somebody would pop up, some wise guy would pop up after the practice was over, and Shula would come out and address the media, and he was very good about that. I mean, he was kind of cool. This was still during training camp, so it wasn't like there was any immense pressure being placed upon him. Team was usually expected to do pretty well, and they had Marino, and they would say, "Well, what about Randall Hill?" And he would go, "We only talk about players that are here."
Yeah.
Don't you love that answer?
Yes, my favorite. It's like, dude.
I mean, it wasn't quite up there with Mark McGuire. I'm not here to talk about the past. Well, then why are you here to talk about, Mark? There's only one reason you're in front of Congress today, and that's to talk about the past.
Yes, exactly.
The best was Sammy Sosa during that period of time, right? No speak. You're like, wait a minute, Sammy. You were just in a Doublemint commercial
Purely of English.
where you were fine. You were singing. You were tap dancing. Yeah, you were like a regular Sammy Davis Jr. Forget about Sosa.
Every day. What do you mean? When he hit 60 home runs 3 straight years?
Yeah.
He was doing interviews every day.
Every day.
That was straight English.
All of a sudden, some crusty old senator from Kentucky is asking him, "Well, what about this thing they call the juice there, Sammy?"
No say.
No speak. No say nothing. No say me that.
Oh my God, that was the best.
Canseco's got a syringe to the neck of Bud Selig, like he's sitting next to him going, yeah, I'll tell the truth. I'm the one guy that's going to be honest here.
Exactly.
Imagine it.
That's bad when the biggest rat, criminal bastard is the one telling the truth.
The only guy. He was the only guy you could believe, right? In the entire testimony that was being given. Even Selig was like, I don't know nothing about that. Nonito Donaire was the name of the boxer that Victor Conti was working with. Nonito Donaire, who was an accomplished boxer and fought somehow into his 40s, came back after sustaining like a series of losses, hooked up with Victor Conti and started winning again. What do you make of that, Lubie? Balco City? Yeah.
What do you remember Marlon Byrd? Didn't Marlon Byrd do a whole thing? Like he had a list of guys that he got involved with after Bonds.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Whatever happened to that guy? Was it Greg Peterson? What was the guy's name?
I don't know.
Greg Anderson, yeah. Whatever happened to him? Where is he today? That was the guy that was taking the fall for Barry Bonds. He was supposed to be like a trainer of some sort, but in reality, he was just the guy that went down to Mexico to get the stuff on the black market that they were pumping into their veins to hit more home runs. Anyway, yeah, it was, it's kind of crazy to think that, this playoff fever now, I hope it hasn't been dimmed in town, Mike Lubie.
I mean, it hasn't started.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not really, sensing that the rest of the town is, dug fully into all of this stuff.
Look, the one place I agree with Brian, and you've said it the whole time I've known you, and you are right. South Florida is a strange sports town. I just don't like when people say they're bad fans because you and I've talked about this. I don't know how people are allowed to be fans how they are. Like to demand people to spend lots of money on a team that inevitably is going to lose. I can't tell people to do that, but they are strange. Like they didn't get to that playing game to nearly halftime.
Yeah.
Like that is South Florida. I mean, I haven't heard anyone talk. Both teams are in the playoffs. And they're not now. The Heat were the overwhelming underdog and they won a game. So neither now is an overwhelming underdog. So there should be some kind of a vibe. Look, we have 2 teams in the Final Four. The Final Four is a big deal.
Nothing happened, man. The sports bars are
No one
empty.
gives a shit.
Yeah.
Unless the Dolphins or Canes have success. The Heat later on, people would get excited. Like the second round. It's a freaking weird market, man.
And even look at some of these other places. It was electrifying what was going on in Sacramento. Sacramento,
Yes.
Notoriously like a shithole for sports. It's not even representative of California City. If you're thinking of moving to California, and a guy says that happened with our former program director, who we were with very briefly, who actually brought us together, Ken Charles, now in Atlanta. But, he said, I got a job in California, right? And we're like, oh, yeah, where? He said, Sacramento. And I'm thinking, that's not California. You may as well go to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, it's right there, smack dab in the middle of the state. I mean, with no desirable qualities to it whatsoever in terms of a place to live, except that you could say you're living in California, right? And have California plates. but they're not representative at all of anything that you would think of, right? Wish they all could be California girls. You're not seeing girls in bikinis walking around on Rodeo Drive there. Kind of a dump, a cow town, and they were going crazy, Luby. And was this their first postseason, the Sacramento Kings, since 2006? Is that possible? That they
Yes.
hadn't even been to the postseason
Yes.
since 2006? Is that right? Even with Kevin Johnson as their mayor,
Yeah.
a guy who probably could have, dropped in, for a couple of quarters and given them some good minutes at guard. No.
Well, he didn't. Yes, they flamed out every single time. They finally, after almost 20 years, have put all those decades longs of draft picks together, and they're interesting and they're fun. They're really fun. I'm curious how their defense holds up in the playoffs, but yeah, if you remember that last time when they ran that Arco, it was Arco, I guess now it's the name, but Arco Arena was crazy. It was one of the best home court advantages because they had nothing else there.
Yes.
They got so into it, good for them. Like we don't do that down here until, and I don't know why, until like the second round. For some reason,
It seems like maybe, I don't know. I mean, is the anticipation so little that these teams will have success that's dull the enthusiasm of the average Heat fan? I mean, usually you'll have the people that are sort of on the fringe get involved, around the time that the postseason takes place.
over the Heat. Well, because the Heat usually are a 1 or 2 seed.
Yeah.
So they have expectations. So yes, it's not usually the second round for them. The Marlins, we don't trust them. The Panthers, we don't trust them. The Canes, they don't really trust anymore. The Heat, they trust enough where usually the Heat, they do follow. But this year has been such a disaster that people are like, and look, I don't know. I follow it. I'm into it.
Yeah.
That's what we do. But yes, when you go around.
I mean, it's great having a dog in the hunt there. I mean, it really is. Otherwise, you get nothing. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen a local newspaper in a long time. I would imagine, that they would have at least some coverage, some depth on what's going on. But, this is why I get this New York Post and love it. I mean, you have like 10 pages of hockey here.
Yes.
Now, they have 3 teams working in the postseason, but that's in addition to like another 5 pages of baseball and basketball. I mean, if you want to follow sports, here's a publication coming out daily where they get into a lot of stuff. Where they'll take you a little bit behind the scenes, peel back the curtain, so to speak, and take a look at things. And you don't have some guy screaming at you through a television set. You actually have somebody that can put things in a relatively eloquent fashion, trying to tell you a story, which is the best part about covering sports, right? Is it not? The stories, they're sometimes very illustrative of what goes on in life itself, or maybe even inspiring, right? That does happen, in spite of the fact that a lot of fans just want to sit there and bitch about the fact that a popcorn's $20 and that their team sucks, and that's it. But I didn't see anything to be frightened about with the Boston Bruins yesterday. Now maybe, I don't know, did they play kind of a tempered game by their standards? I didn't see
I
enough
think that's the team they
Bruins
are.
hockey.
They're not an offensive juggernaut. They're really
Yeah.
eventually they're really good in the net, and they take advantage of their chances. Like whatever fight I was having, they didn't blow the whistle. The puck was, I guess, legally loose, and the Bruins took advantage of it. The Panthers' defense has been suspect. Tesler said that. Sarny said that. Whoever said it, and that play was indicative of that. Look, the goaltender made a play. Get the guys out of there. Let him find the puck. No, Bruins forced their way to a goal, and that's what they've done, from what I know, all year. And maybe they don't have Bergeron. I don't know. All I know is that stuff I was hearing and reading going in was not about their offense, was that they're really strong defensively and they're really opportunistic. And that's literally what we saw last night. And
they obviously have that one characteristic that is as cliched as anything, and that is they do know how to win games. I mean,
so that's it.
They locked that thing down yesterday, and the Panthers literally had very few, if any, chances to get back into it once they got that third, as you say, greasy goal. The second goal was a lousy one given up by Lyon. That was one of the few bad plays you've seen that guy make since he's been in there, and you thought maybe jitters. And now people would consider making a switch. Would you throw a very sketchy Bobrovsky off a long layoff in there for game 2 if you were Paul Maurice there, Maurice Chevalier, the
Sarni's
French Joe Philbin. Do you go, well, you know what? We needed a little bit of a change.
Sarni's like, it's time to get the $10 million guy out there. I'm like, to do what? I'm like, he's horrible.
Lion made some great stops in that game last night.
Lions-
That game could have been 6-1 just as easily.
Lion did
I know you can always say that because it wasn't. He did give up, at least one, goal that was clearly his fault when he, had it go off his glove and into the net on a shot where he had clear vision on it. And then the second one, that's just one of those jam-up plays that sometimes results in, let's face it, a fluke goal. The puck is sitting there loose. The refs properly didn't blow the whistle in as long as the puck is not being covered up.
Yeah.
And, eventually somebody poked it in there after about a half an hour in front of the net.
That's the thing. You can put Bobrovsky out
Could
there.
have been called for delay of game. I mean, the way that was going, no?
Bobrovsky out there. He's not better. They didn't lose because of Lion. I mean,
I don't think he was the reason they lost that game. No.
It's hard to expect to win when getting one goal. Like, okay. I mean, yes, he didn't stand on his head, but he wasn't a city.
He made at least 2 great stops though in that game on odd man rushes by the Boston Bruins, and if he had allowed either one of those to go in, you could not have faulted him, and or both. So but it didn't look like you were being overwhelmed by Boston. It wasn't like Boston was just toying with you or anything. So
it was good until the end of the second. And even then, 3-1, you see, if you get an early goal in the third period, you're down. Once you get down to that one goal, it's a game. And the Bruins just shut it down. I mean, they just did. I'm not saying the series is over. I'm not writing it off.
The series far from over. I mean, look, you're in there with a legitimate shot. This thing with the Heat tomorrow night, rather, is a huge opportunity. I love that situation. Any team that I'm rooting for. When you win the opener on the road, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. I mean, and now with a possibly suspect Antetokounmpo, if you're the Miami Heat, you're letting it all go. No, tomorrow.
That's the thing. You're playing, as they say, with house money. But my hope with house money is you use it as an advantage, not a point to be lethargic. Because a lot of the time you can be like, okay, we had this team this year. Okay, we're in a good spot, and then you just fall asleep. Like, I'd rather them use it like you're saying. This is an opportunity for us to show all the people that gave us no shot. We not only are not going to get swept, we now are going to win this fucking series.
Well, and it might have taken a fluke circumstance. My experience, and a lot of degenerates out there, I think, have shared the same sort of path also, is that when I've been playing with house money, I usually piss it away and then some.
100%. That's why it ends up working.
You're up 400 right away at the track, and you end up losing 100. And you're thinking, wait a minute, I could have walked away like at least up a couple of sticks. Why couldn't I stop myself? Because you can't.
That's the thing.
Yeah. House money isn't always necessarily something. I mean, rarely do you tuck it away in a shoe somewhere and walk out of there with it in your pocket. Although I try to do that, Lubie, and it doesn't always work. But I'll say, okay, if I get up, 300-400 right away, hit some race, I'm gonna put a deuce away and say, okay, I'll see what I can do with the rest. I'll try and hang in there and maybe adjust your betting accordingly. Nah, that's bullshit. I'm going to piss it all away.
No, you're going to get rid of it. And if the Heat do lose 1-1, I couldn't have asked for more. But you're in an interesting position where if you can put a game, even, okay, Giannis is probably going to play. He's not going to be 100%. I find hard to believe he's going to be 100%. So go after him. Attack.
Yeah.
You need Bam to be aggressive.
Reverse triangle and 2 defense, I think.
It's more to me about their offense. Like, it's doing what they did in that fourth quarter where they attacked. If they can attack, put the Bucks on the defensive, it can be an interesting game. And
perhaps a dose of confidence is being generated by the fact that for some reason their numbers are on the rise when it comes to, as pathetic as they were, at least they're trending in the right direction.
Yes.
Including a couple of really spectacular performances, both by individuals and the team, with regard to 3-point shooting. How's that for analysis, Lubie? Huh?
Well, you
Call
saw
me Hubie Brown.
You saw Strus wake up. You saw Love wake up. Again, the idea is these guys aren't going to do it every game, but if you get enough guys involved,
then you can get the right guy to fall.
No matter what, someone's helping out. That was what worked for them last year. It wasn't that Caleb Martin was every game, if Vincent was every game, if Strus was every game. There was 5 or 6 guys, so eventually at least 2 or 3 is going to pop every game. And that's what they missed this year. And in the last month you've seen. Look, they went from I think like 30 or 31% to like 38 or 39%. That doesn't seem like a lot, but that's a lot of points on the board that they weren't getting.
No, big difference, and more indicative of what they did the year before when they led the league in that category. Hard to believe you could go right back to the bottom. That's almost unfathomable that a team could do that, but without dramatic change in personnel. All right, we're coming back with Scoop Skolnick. He's going to join us. Ethan Skolnick, 5 Reasons Sports Network. We're very happy to have that affiliation, and we always love having Scoop on the show because he gets into it, man. We're talking about minute detail as to what's going on, especially with the Miami Heat, and we'll peruse the rest of the NBA postseason with Ethan Scoop Skolnick in just a moment here on the Defo Show. Now that. Right there with Winderman, no, in terms of
100%.
I don't know. I might even, because we've been talking to Scoop, we might have to give him the nod.
Eileen Scoop. But
Yeah, in terms of Heat knowledge. It's 8:17. Ponies in Style at Champions, the outstanding simulcasting room at beautiful Hialeah Park. Yes, the grand old lady of thoroughbred racing has never been more vibrant, and you can wager on the races from the top tracks around the country while enjoying a cocktail at the Brass Rail Bar or any of the fine food served throughout the facility. If poker is your game, you're covered in style, and you can play all your favorite Vegas-style games, including blackjack, craps, and roulette, in Hialeah Park's sizzling hot casino. Get a player's card when you walk through the door for all kinds of generous amenities, including our favorite, free play, when you come out to the ultimate casino and entertainment destination, Hialeah Park.
These days, we're all looking for comfort anywhere we can find it. Thank goodness for Landlubbers Raw Bar and Grill in the Plantation location because they are making sure you are as comfortable as possible. First of all, they're not only open for delivery and pickup. All you have to do is go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both pickup and free delivery. Their hours have changed a little bit. Monday through Thursday from 3:30 to 10, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from 11:30 to 10. You're going to have the best wings in the world. You're going to have a great burger. You're going to have their amazing soups. Again, Landlubbers, Raw Bar, and Grill. It's nice and easy. Just go to landlubbersbarandgrill.com for both your pickup and free delivery. Thank goodness for Landlubbers for making you always feel right at home.
Hear me. I am your new president. From this day on, the official language of San Marcos will be Swedish. Silence. In addition to that, all citizens will be required to change their underwear every half hour. Underwear will be worn on the outside so we can check. Furthermore, all children under 16 years old are now 16 years old.
What's the Spanish word for straitjacket? Power has driven him mad.
Welcome back to the Defo Show.
That was derived from the steps of Disney World, where Ron DeSantis was once again condemning the Mouseketeers as being obscene.
I love he either travels the country not being a governor or takes on one of our greatest things.
Yes.
For no reason.
Drive the lone asset of the state, other than the orange, right out of here and into Kansas City.
South Florida, outside of South Florida, the state of Florida would be nothing except for the fact that Orlando became a theme
destination,
theme park central because of Disney, which led to Busch Gardens. But again, Universal, Busch Gardens, all those other places don't exist without Disney as the hub. And people usually come down, they go to Disney, and then it's like the restaurant scene where it's okay that the other ones are there because you can't just go to Disney, right? So you come down to Florida, you go to Disney, you go everywhere else, and then you probably come down to South Florida.
Stay in hotels, you do some dining, you spend money in local stores,
like
buying some beach towels, driving over to Daytona.
Like, what are you doing, bud?
Yeah. Let's run these people out of here, man. They ain't doing us any good.
Yeah, they like people.
Bunch of hillbillies living in Beverly Hills. Unbelievable. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy. This was all, you talk about a political agenda, right? I mean, it's so obvious that all of this stems from Disney's opposition to his absurd viewpoint about, the don't say gay thing. And in retaliation, strict retaliation, all of a sudden, all of this legislative activity is cracking down on Disney World.
I like that he doesn't focus on any of the actual issues we have, and there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
None. He never. He focuses on a bunch of stuff that's only important to a small part of the nation, not Florida, because Floridians actually are not. We're now considered by.
Did you ever think about this? How absurd it was that Disney had, its own, governing power.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy, but it was like, fuck it, let them have it. Like, who wanted to get in the way of it? It didn't hurt anyone except for the crap. Outside of that, they really have stayed out of our way. They haven't gotten in our way, and they brought us a lot of money. Like, who was like, screw Disney? Who cares about Disney? Like, whoever thought about Disney?
And it's never come up before.
No.
I guess it's about time we clean those rats out of here, right?
There you go.
There you go. Old Ronnie boy. I mean, you talk about a strange cat. If the option, what? I mean, could this be possible that there would be a person that you would actually prefer to see Trump as a nominee over Ron DeSantis? I mean, Ethan would be a good guy to run that by. We're joined by the great Ethan Scoop Skolnick here on the show from 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm thinking, he might be the lesser of two evils at this point. Among the Republican candidates.
I mean, DeSantis can spell his own name. That makes him a little more problematic.
That makes him scarier somehow.
Yeah.
But at least people have recognized that the other guy's a criminal at this stage, and if they want to vote for him in spite of that, then what are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's the attraction at this point. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's I don't know what is the lesser of two evils in that situation. I think I'll take the dumber guy who's lost before.
Yes.
Over the one who is a little more savvy to him, even though he's on the wrong side of everything. That's
true.
That's
weren't you thinking
a little more problematic?
Weren't you thinking how great it would be if we could just run these Disney people out of the state?
Well,
I mean, why don't we just stop growth of the orange while we're at it?
Right? They've never brought any revenue to the state of Florida.
Like, he exists because of them.
Pretty incredible. All right, so let's talk about the state of affairs. I mean, Miami Heat fans. It's funny because you've been through this where fans talking about it on radio, TV, newspapers. Geez, it'd be better off not making the playoffs because we need that draft pick, and we're not going anywhere anyway. We'll never beat Milwaukee, so what the hell? Why should we even bother? And then the Heat get in there against Milwaukee, and you're thinking, it could happen, some fluke thing where maybe they wake up, and the Greek comes down on somebody's ankle and misses 3 games of the series. There's always a shot, so I think you always want to take that shot. And look what happened, right?
Yeah.
They get in there against a team that was the number 1 seed. A lot of people, Ethan, had them cruising to the NBA title, or at least the finals. And, what happens? I mean, body slam on Antetokounmpo, and next thing you know, you're up 1-0 in the series with a chance to maybe make it 2.
Yeah, and the thing is, they were actually leading before that happened, so they were playing pretty well. I don't know with their history this year if they would have closed it out, but and look at what happened yesterday also, in that they won that little lottery or that little ping pong ball thing, so they're actually picking 18th. So all they did was lose 4 spots. I don't know why Heat fans who always are talking about how the Heat don't value the draft cared so much about missing on 6 slots, or thought that was going to be the difference in a trade for a superstar. Like, we're going to pick that's 14th as opposed to 18th, and that's going to make a huge difference. I mean, when other teams are hoarding first-round picks for the next 20 years, I mean, you're not competing with that anyway. So I wanted them to make the playoffs just because that's what you try to do. Now, did I think you had a chance in this series? No. Do I still think they have a chance in this series? I think the Tyler Hero thing is going to be felt much more as they go forward. I think that, there's a certain adrenaline that you have with a team. We see it all the time where a guy goes out, other guys kind of step up, but then, okay, now you don't have the player for the rest of the series. And now that starts to set in, and then it's how do we sort of scheme around that? And they don't have a ton of options to scheme around it, because for all the criticism that Tyler may get for his defense and for some of the inconsistency, the reality is he's really the only, 3-level scorer on the team of that group. And so, you can go with an option, but it's all going to be bad options. Like, okay, Duncan Robinson, all right, but he's going to get cooked defensively also. And if he's not hitting his shots, he's really not good for much else on offense. Victor Oladipo is going to pound the ball into the ground the entire time. So, yes, you get better defense there, but you get no space with Jimmy and Bam, and you get no flow in their offensive sets. You can start Caleb Martin. That's kind of an option, but then you take him off the bench where he's been most effective. You weaken your bench. You can start Kevin Love. We saw that Kevin Love seems to fit better on this team as a backup 5 than he does as a starting 4. So, then it becomes, okay, do you start Haywood Highsmith, there just to kind of plug the hole? You move Strus to 2. They don't really have good options here. And so I think it's great that they got the win. I think it's natural that they're going to relax in game 2. Giannis is coming back. That place is going to be hyped. I would pick the Bucks by 1,000 in that game.
Wow.
Now the question is, can you come back? What can you muster? And again, what can you muster without Tyler? Because Tyler wanted to play this team because of the defense that they play. They play drop. It plays into his hands, and he had 12 points when he went out. I mean, he was finding his rhythm a little bit. I really think it hurts him as the series goes on. But I was glad to see them make a representative effort in game 1. Jimmy's tremendous, as we know, and Bam picked it up in the second half, and they shot the ball in a way they haven't shot the ball the whole year. So that was their 4th best offensive rating of the season. It was their number 1 pace of the season, which I thought was interesting because you could see that they were pushing pace early in the game so the Bucks wouldn't get set. So Spoelstra came out with a bunch of wrinkles to steal game 1. I think it's going to be harder in game 2.
So you would not be with us in the notion that Reggie Miller should be Baker acted for making a statement. I don't know if you were watching this thing on TV. I guess you were, but
I heard of it. Yes.
I mean, it stunned me when he said it. That
back.
Yeah,
Remember,
I mean,
he's back and Hero's gone for the series.
Yeah.
Miller was saying it as though if both were out, Hero's worse for the Heat than Giannis. That is what got you and me. It's not
that it would be harder to replace for the Heat to replace Hero than it would be for the Bucks to replace Antetokounmpo. And the only thing I thought about that was, isn't Antetokounmpo's brother still on the Bucks roster?
Yes, he is.
So they could put Antetokounmpo in a game, but I mean, you're talking about 30 points versus 2.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So
and more fights. Yes.
What is he insane in making that statement? I mean, you made a very, very good case that this is very damaging for the Miami Heat. This Hero loss.
I mean, he would be insane in saying that anybody losing Tyler Hero is more damaging than the Bucks losing Giannis. But I kind of get the point. Well, first thing, he's not going to be back for the series, whereas Giannis is. So that's the thing. But the second thing is, the Bucks, I think, were 10-8 this year without Giannis.
11-8. They said 11-8.
11-8, something along those lines. So they kind of do know how to play without him. That they've had success without him in the past. They have guys who can step into roles. And the Heat really, as I just sort of chronicled, they don't really have a replacement for Hero in terms of what he does on offense. So it's not the most insane statement. It's insane on paper, and that you're comparing Giannis to Hero, and everybody's like, well, okay. But it is a huge loss for Miami. I mean, it's not. This was a team that was bad offensively to begin with, regardless of what they did in game 1, and then now you're taking out essentially their most. I know people are gonna say Jimmy scores more. He's their most skilled offensive player. Jimmy is will and guts and angles and IQ and all this stuff. But Tyler's a natural offensive player. It's what he does. Now, if he did anything on the other end, you'd be talking about a superstar level player. But it's just that they just don't have a replacement for him. And it's kind of like, honestly, it did feel a little bit like you got drunk and then you had the hangover, right? You had a really good buzz that night, and it's like, okay, wait a second. Now, what did I do? You know what I mean? And that's kind of the Tyler thing here. It's like, okay, what did I do? And now I got to go explain this to this person and that person, and I skipped work, and it just kind of hits you the next morning, like, okay, now where do they go? So you had one good night, and I kind of feel like that's how this series may play out. Maybe it ends in 6. I still don't see them winning the series.
I don't know.
Well, it was especially difficult to envision when they were trailing Chicago late in the fourth quarter of the second play-in game, and you thought, wow, these guys really don't have it. There was, I guess, a stat that was thrown out there about how the Heat three-point shooting was trending forward towards the end of the season. That as abysmal as it was throughout most of the year, it started to make a move into more of the territory that you were accustomed to. And then, I mean, between Strus in the game against the Chicago Bulls, and then virtually everybody in this game against the Bucks, 15 of 25, this seems to be a category where they have, breathed new life into. Is that something that you could have spotted, or was that just arbitrary good luck that they were canning? I mean, obviously, you can't expect them to shoot 60% from 3-point range throughout the series.
Yeah, some of it is just a progression to the mean, even though the mean is lower for this team than it was for the past teams. And I don't expect, again, it to continue when, Hero was their only shooter this year, shot better than 37% from three. The Bucks have 8 of those guys.
Wow.
So, you're taking out the one guy who did shoot that high. And the other thing I would caution a little bit about this particular game is it's not like they shot a ton of threes. Spoelstra used to talk the whole season about they wanted to get up 43s. They only took 25, which in the modern NBA, I know it's a lot for 10 years ago, but in the modern NBA, it's not that many. So, yes, they did make a good portion of it. A lot of them came off doubles off of Jimmy. And I think 3 of Love's, and a couple of the others. So, they schemed for their threes. They got good looks. There's a lot of collapsing on, but they made them. And over the course of the season, they did not make their open threes consistently. So that has come up a little bit, even though they really haven't added a shooter. I think some of it is, and it wasn't really the case last night, but Lowry has shot the ball better from 3 of late. Gabe's up and down. Strus is up and down, but when he's up, he's really up. That's the thing. And Love's given them a little something there, but they're not going to beat people consistently with their 3-point shooting. If they're going to beat people, it's going to be because of just Jimmy's will, honestly. Bam does a little of everything, and then defensively, they lock in the clutch when it matters. And they've been a very good free throw shooting team. It didn't show in game 1, but they've been the best free throw shooting team in Heat history. And that has, everybody keeps looking for reasons why they win these clutch games. And I think that's the one understated reason. They don't miss a lot of free throws. And that keeps them in these things late. And one miss for the other team can turn it. So do I expect them to start shooting lights out in this series? I don't. I think Milwaukee will give them some looks. They tend to, with the way that they play defense. And they'll dare the Heat to beat them. And the Heat will probably have one of these 9 of 38 games or 3 that'll doom them. And honestly, that may come tomorrow. I do feel like tomorrow is one where everything is pointing towards lay the points with the Bucks. When Miami comes home, then it becomes that game 3 is I expect a tight game, and can Miami close it? That's more where the series will turn here. And if they can win that one, then you're up 2-1. Then we start to have a conversation here, because then the pressure starts to go on Giannis, because he's a champion. He's supposed to win this series, and the Heat are playing with house money. So playoffs have been a little weird so far. We've seen some things with chalk, like the Sixers over the Nets, the Celtics over the Hawks. We've seen in the West, a lot of teams are very close this year, and this Milwaukee team is very good, but it's not, by net rating, it's not the best of the Bucks teams that they've taken the playoffs the last 4 years. So they're not dominant. They're better than Miami. I think that will carry forward over 7 games, but we'll see.
Well, look, heading into this series, you had just come off that abomination versus the Hawks.
Mm-hmm.
What was sort of a dreadful game versus the Bulls, but a good end of the fourth quarter that saved them. Really, Jimmy Butler saved them. And so heading to the series, it was sweep. Maybe they make it a 5-game series. So to me, once you steal game 1, at least it feels like, okay, maybe they can take it 6. Maybe they can end this dreadful year on a much better note than you expected. Like, that's the thing. To me, the expectations were lowered so much that I'm not jumping to they're going to win the series yet. It's, okay, maybe this year that started with some expectations, floundered most of the year, ends higher in an offseason that feels like there's enough superstars that want out where finally the Heat can get in there, whereas they've tried the last few years and it just didn't work. So that's my thing. To me is, I get it. People may go the other way. We're like, oh my God, they have a chance. And I don't know about all that. But to me, this series was about, okay, can the Heat still show that they have heart? Because that wasn't the Heat always have had heart. This year, that wasn't the case. This year, they just fell flat. Riley let them down, and adding to the roster, whoever, Ellisberg, whoever you want to say it's fault, but they still usually give a damn. Like, they usually would have found their way to the 6th seed or the 5th seed, and then they didn't, and they the 8th seed. So if you can show, look, for a Bucks team that everyone's crowning, there's still some heart, then that to me is the impetus for an offseason that could make or break the end of Riley's run.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this has not been a Miami Heat team. You've hit on it. It just has not been like that. And it kind of is a Miami Heat team whenever Jimmy feels like it wants to be. And that's where you're at. And I think we're seeing something, kind of historic but Pyrrhic. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, you see Jimmy, he's trying to push this boulder up the hill again. And I think the thing with Jimmy is what's funny is because when he's trying to do it because you see what he looks like when he's not, right? Because when he coasts during certain regular season games. So it's very obvious. And it's just look, I think that at a certain point in sports, you just gotta enjoy what you're actually watching. And I feel like what we're seeing in the Jimmy Butler era, I never thought you'd have anything close to the Dwayne and LeBron experience. And you have, and it's crazy because he's not the natural athlete that those guys are. He's not I mean, he's in good shape, obviously, but he's not a once in a generation athlete like LeBron James, and he's not Dwayne. He's just better than everybody he's going against. It's crazy. There's no 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, 10 out of 10 skill or attribute. It's just other than I guess his IQ and his will. And it is. I mean, he always said his best attribute was his will, and you can see it. And they can't guard him. It's you watch his highlights. It's 8 different defenders who are taking cracks at him, including Drew Holiday, and they can't do anything with him. I'm just enjoying watching him. This team is frustrating. They need to rebuild it. They need to reshape it. I'll say the other problem with the hero thing, we did a whole episode on this. This is up on the YouTube channel now. Is it kind of takes away some of the evaluation there because I didn't, look, his regular season numbers, Tyler's regular season numbers were essentially the same per minute that they were the year before when he was off the bench. So the idea that he struggled in the starting role is not true. They struggled to make it work, but he didn't struggle. His numbers were the same, which actually you take a bigger role and your numbers per minute are the same. That's good. You're going against better defenders, whatever. But really, we wanted to see it in the playoffs. That's what we've been waiting for and now you don't get a chance. And I think that we have seen historically Pat Riley sacrifices the third guy. When you go all the way back to the late 90s, Timmy and Zoe or Zoe and Timmy, MASH ended up getting sacrificed. It took 4 years, but they sacrificed him to try to upgrade the roster. Then you look at the Shaq Wade thing. He only waited 1 year. He had Wade and Shaq. Eddie Jones kind of bombed in the playoffs. He sacrificed Eddie that year. That's typically what he does. So Tyler is the guy. If you're serious, if you're committed to a Jimmy Bam build, then Tyler's the guy that you sacrifice either to upgrade for another star or to bring in a better sort of overall 3 through 6, right?
Yeah.
Sort of like the Lakers did. I don't know how they're going to view it now that they didn't get to see Tyler in the playoffs. So I think that's one of the things that was a little bit hurtful about Game 1.
I want to apologize to Eddie Jones' family. I was in the stands one day. It was the first time I tried marijuana chocolates. I was with a friend in the radio business who had made up a batch and got carried away. Eddie had 5 turnovers in the game, and I started making, I guess you could consider them derisive comments very loudly. And turns out Eddie Jones' family was sitting in front of me. As one of my loyal sponsors was also in that section. And
were you at 121, Jeff? That tends to be the family section.
Yeah. I don't know where we were exactly, but it was embarrassing. It became an embarrassment. And have you ever? I mean, you go to the practices and the shoot-arounds. I mean, you're really around his team, Ethan. So even more reason to respect your opinion about it. But have you ever seen Jimmy Butler happy? Is he ever happy?
No, he is when he's a contrarian. That's the thing about Jimmy. He's just going to do the opposite of what you want him to do. That's what it is. And if you say to Jimmy, "You're the best player in the world," he'll say, "I don't care about that. Nobody cares." And then he literally had said that in one press conference, and then they were playing Chicago. And Chuck Swirsky, who's been a longtime broadcaster with the Bulls, came in the locker room and said, "What you been up to, Jimmy?" He says, "I've been busy being the best player in the world." It's just the way he is. You know what I mean? He's just. Yeah. I think he's happy. He's a happy hater, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? He likes giving it. I mean, he put the deer on Instagram. He's hunting deer. He's he's a difficult personality for this organization. I know that.
Really?
He does not make it easy on the PR
Not your
staff.
typical guy for Heat Family Day, when
No,
they have,
he
is
didn't
he good
stick.
like that? Yeah.
Not like Bam. No. Like
Yeah.
Bam will interact.
Dwayne Wade, used to be glad handing everybody,
Jimmy wanted to get out of there. You could
Yeah.
see he was miserable. It's just not his thing. Like, he'd just rather do his own thing. He's an eclectic personality. He likes things you wouldn't necessarily expect him to like. He's just, but you know what? I mean, Pat Riley is enamored with him because he does the thing that you want him to do, which is he fights. And that's the thing. And so, you deal with all the other BS, and they've had difficult guys before. Shaq was difficult in his own way. Bron was difficult in his own way. Dwayne was not really difficult because he came up through the organization, and Bam hasn't been either. But yeah, I mean, it's like even someone who's very close to Jimmy said to me, he says he's a pain in the ass, but he's our pain in the ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way that they view it too.
Jamie Foxx play him in the Jimmy Butler story.
I think he could.
Very easy. All right, quick look. We always appreciate your time, Ethan. I know you got a lot of things going with 5 reasons and the playoffs underway. You mentioned, all right, Philadelphia, prevailed. They had a lousy first half last night against Brooklyn. Brooklyn, you got to, you have to kind of tip your hat to the idea that they're even competitive in the series. But other than that, they still find themselves down 2-0. You mentioned Boston annihilated Atlanta in the first game of their series, and Milwaukee. You're still expecting to come through. Anything significant though? And you had the Brooklyn and not the Brooklyn, rather the Knicks and Cavaliers series, which the Knicks prevailed in Game 1, and that was interesting. Naturally, they're going nuts in New York. Anything you could deduce from these other series that impressed you?
Well, I thought the Knicks-Cavs series would be a long series. I think most people did. I picked the Knicks mostly because of their bench that played out in Game 1. I just think the Cavaliers bench needs work. That's an off-season project for them. I do think the Knicks will win that series, but it's going to be very difficult. The other 2 series are going as expected. Boston and Philadelphia are just better than those teams. And in the West, I mean, I think we're seeing what we saw all year. I mean, all those teams are really talented and really flawed, and so there was no dominant team. Even Denver, Memphis might have been dominant this year, but then they lost all their bigs, and that against the Lakers is problematic because the Lakers go to the basket a lot, and so losing Brandon Clark, but especially Steven Adams, has really hurt them, and Steven Adams is probably not coming back for the playoffs. I had Memphis maybe coming out of the West, but I don't see it now, and I didn't see it even before Game 1 against the Lakers because of the loss of their bigs. And that Clippers-Phoenix series is fascinating, and that just may be a case of without Paul George, like we may be saying again after that series that Kawhi Leonard's again the best player in the world. And it's kind of like he just disappears for months, and then he shows up and he's playoff Kawhi again, and you're going against Kevin Durant, you're still saying he's the best player on the floor. I mean, that's something, right? And Kawhi may steal that thing. And if he steals that thing and they get Paul George back,
yes,
I kind of thought the winner of that series would go to the finals. And I know the Warriors Kings series is fun, but I don't see it as sustainable for either team. The Warriors are just not good enough on the road this year, and the Kings are not good enough defensively. So I'm real, and again, Denver until they do it, I don't really buy it. Memphis got the injury, so I really think the Phoenix Clippers winner goes to the finals. If Kawhi beats them, and then he gets Paul George back in a week,
yeah,
I give them a really good chance. And look, Russ has been Russ, but they've needed that Russ. Like that's the thing. Like yes, he shot 3 of 19. They don't win that game without him. So I just think they're really interesting and they're deep. And the Paul George thing is why I picked Phoenix. I think most people did. But if they get through this thing, we can start crowning Kawhi again because he's just he was great. Yeah, every made shot he had was contested.
Yeah.
Every made literally by the stats. If you look at the numbers, he did not shoot an open shot the entire night. He shot 65% from the floor. He had. They said that his shooting percentage should have been in the low 30s based on the shot selection. He shot 65% from the floor, and he defended Kevin Durant. He's just special, but he's never available. When he's available, then he might still be the best player in the world.
Well, his thing is It's like Jimmy Butler, but with a little more ability, where like
Yes.
he has that hunger, he has that bitterness, he only gives a crap about basketball. But he got into that thing with injuries. And as we've seen, like once you start getting injured, you get into a vicious cycle. But it's been 2-3 years now. So if he's healthy,
Right.
he's friggin' scary. The Nuggets are so weird to me because you have the superstar. You have co-stars because Murray, when he is healthy, is a scary guard, can do everything. He's a 3-level scorer. You have Aaron Gordon, the athletic dude that can defend and has gotten much better offensively. Michael Porter Jr., who is a mismatch because of his size and his offensive.
And they've got good role players. KCP and Bruce Brown have done a really good job for them this year. But there's just something a little off. We'll see. This should be a steamroll series for them. They should win this series in 5 games. If they get out of it, though, then they get Phoenix or the Clippers. And I just think we're talking about Denver's talent, but I think those two teams, if fully healthy, are actually more talented than Denver is. And then it becomes, okay, can you play Jokic down the stretch of these games against those teams? You know, the Clippers can go small, and they do go small a lot. They take Zubats off. They go smaller. Phoenix can go small, too, because they can put Durant at the 5. And then what do you know, if they take Ayton out? Phoenix's Achilles heel is their bench. They don't – this is what happens when you reshape a team during the season and you don't really have time to put the pieces around them. That they are, once they get past their top 5 or 6, it's ugly. So they cannot afford the usual Chris Paul or Kevin Durant injury because they don't have the depth to sustain.
Oh, we lost Scoop at the moment of truth here. Wow. There he is. Okay,
so
good.
There you go. No, I'm back. They don't have the depth to sustain it, whereas the other teams do. So,
all right, 2 real quick things here, if you don't mind. I know we very much appreciate your time here, Ethan. Reeves of the Lakers. Speaking of reshaped benches, and they got that Hiroshima guy and Russell, and it looks like they've surrounded LeBron James and Anthony Davis with better players for sure. Does Reeves being an heroic figure with the Lakers remind you of Robbie Benson in the movie One on One? When out of nowhere, I don't know if you remember that. We lost him. Maybe he just checked out on that because he didn't want to be another victim of my one-on-one obsession with Robbie Benson. But I did want to ask him about Isaiah Wong declaring for the draft there and what his possibilities were as an NBA player. Because I don't know that I saw Isaiah Wong. Oh, there he is. Yeah. Are you familiar with that movie, Robbie Benson, one-on-one basketball movie? Is the worst sports movie ever.
A long time ago. There are not a lot of good basketball movies, though. You know that.
This was horrible, but I mean, Reeves, it just seems so improbable that this guy would be a hero with the Lakers because, he's being mobbed on the bench, high five by LeBron, by Anthony Davis, by all of these big stars. And, here's this guy, you're thinking he literally came out of nowhere, didn't he?
He kind of did to a degree. I mean, he's their new Caruso, right?
And I'm a big Caruso fan. I think Caruso is an invaluable asset out there on the floor.
No, he is good. He is good.
Overall
I'll say
player.
This about Reeves.
Yeah.
There's more skill there. He's more skilled there. You can put the ball in his hands and he can create some things with it.
Yeah.
He's going to get paid this offseason, but he has the LeBron stamp of approval right now. That's the thing. And he said yesterday that he knew in the first day of training camp that he would fit his game. And he does because he can play on and off the ball. He can shoot a little bit. He can get into the lane. He's been a good player for them. I'll say this because I thought the Lakers would not get out of the play-in when we were looking before the trades.
Wow.
But the trades have helped them a lot. And I just don't trust AD to get through an entire series. And that's the whole thing. It's just
he's on the ground a lot, this guy.
Yes.
Always.
Yeah, it's always frightening. Yeah.
He grabs stuff. It's like, dude, that wasn't even where you fell. They made the other day, he fell on his ass and he grabbed his arm, and it was like AD.
He's like, which one was it supposed to be this series? That's it. That's where you're at.
He's on the phone to a personal injury attorney, grabbing his neck, even though he fell on his ass. Isaiah Wong declaring for the draft. Now, is he an NBA player, in your opinion? Isaiah Wong of the University of Miami.
I think he's certainly a camp invite.
Does he get drafted in the second round?
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so. I think in that regard he's making a mistake, but I don't know that it would change a lot in the next year. The second round has now sort of become the stash place where half the picks aren't on American players anyway. So you really only have fewer slots. He's the type of guy that gets through to undrafted, makes a camp, scores a lot in summer league, maybe latches on with NBA roster. His shooting form needs to be fixed a little bit. He's really thin. He's going to have to get in the weight room a little bit. He's got kind of a herky jerky. I think best case scenario for him, he's a seventh man who could provide some scoring.
All right.
For a team, but I think, and I hate to say this but they've had a lot of look. Lonnie Walker's made it in the pros, but he was a better athlete. Bruce Brown's made it in the pros, but he could do a little bit of everything. Jack McClinton bounced around for a long time because he was too small and has ended up playing overseas. I think it's more likely that Isaiah Wong has a long overseas career. But I think he can latch on with an NBA team as a bench scorer. I do think so, but he's going to have to get stronger. I think that's the one thing. I talked to a couple. I don't know if the Heat have any interest or not. They like every undrafted guy, so who knows? But
Tim James, man, it's Tim James syndrome. Came from UM.
I don't know that he's necessarily. I think that Pack has more of an NBA future. To be honest,
is that right? Wow, okay.
Yeah, because he can shoot from range.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
And so that's helpful.
Outstanding as always, Ethan. It's always a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have the affiliation there with 5 Reasons Sports Network, also with the Defo on 5 thing and the other stuff that we post there. So keep up the great work. Thanks so much for being with us. It's always a pleasure, my friend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks,
all right. Ethan Scoop Skolnick. I wish he'd brush up on his basketball before he came on.
If he just basketball a little bit, it would be really helpful.
Yeah, geez, man. He's got this guy, obscure UM guy that plays in Europe. Who the hell would even know, right? Jim Sarney told me that Wong had declared for the draft. If that's true, I thought it was. I don't know that it's surprising, but I didn't see him as a pro, a U.S. NBA pro. I thought maybe he plays in Europe somewhere. No, what do you think?
What is it? He was a senior, like another year.
I think he's a 7th-year senior.
Yeah, I don't know how much he's going to. I think he's allowed to go back because of that COVID nonsense.
He's going to pursue a PhD. I think.
I don't
play another 4 years at the University of Miami.
Go out there, get whatever money you can. I think he can latch on with someone, and good for him. I mean, he had a good career with UM.
You see what's happening? No, it's helter skelter in college basketball. I mean, NC State has lost like 4 of its starters.
Oh yeah,
off a 20-12 team. I mean, teams are schools are just coming and raping the other people in the transfer portal with obviously very big incentives from name, image, and likeness.
Yes,
and I mean it's wilder than anything you've ever seen in any sport in terms of free agency at this point.
Yes,
everybody's a free agent every year.
I wouldn't
it's incredible.
But there are some programs that are good at making their certain players feel at home.
But you're seeing a lot of movement. I mean, a ton of movement.
A lot of movement. Like guys that would be in your rotation. Look, when you get to be your senior year now, if you know you're not going to start, there's really no reason to accept a backup role because other schools will let you know we'll start.
How much corruption, though, is going to be in play here? I guess it's no longer corrupt.
It's not corruption.
It doesn't violate any of the tenets that have been laid out, which seem to be very vague. When it comes to, but who would be regulating this name, image, and likeness? In other words, how could you, limit free enterprise once you've allowed it? You can't possibly then tell somebody, well, you can't make that much money because you're still a college basketball player.
Everyone, the tagline, what you hear now is it's Wild West now. We figure at some point, even Ken said this, which it's rare that he actually has faith in anything. At some point, they'll have to figure it out, but it's Wild West now. I'm curious why everyone...
Who would be in a position to regulate these things, though?
Well,
the government? I mean, it isn't the NCAA, right?
The colleges themselves by conference, not NCAA. The NCAA is...
have conference rules about limitations?
Well, at some point say, look, we don't want to not... Because, again, we already have the NFL.
Yeah.
We have the NBA. This idea, well, it's the NFL. No, it's the NFL. And, again, we already have the NFL. So at some point, it'll just continue to water it down. So at some point, someone should get together, all the conference, and say, look, fuck the NCAA. We like this, and we know it's going to be impossible to get rid of, but we got to rein it in. I'm just curious when that happens and who does it, because the powers that exist are taking advantage. Yeah, outside of Nick Saban bitching and Kirby Smart bitching.
Well, Nick Saban is a total fraud in that regard.
Yeah. They take full advantage of it, and it's what they were doing already. So whenever they figure out, okay, we just got to do this, they'll shut the fuck up and they'll do it. So I'm curious when the conference.
I'm not sure, how that smooths itself out. I mean, it does create, real chaos. I mean, helter-skelter type chaos, where and you would think that it would hurt the chances of teams like an FAU to remain consistently at the top level when if they have a player with demonstrated ability. it wouldn't be very difficult to see some other larger school enticing them away with a big fat deal, to basically do nothing except have a couple of T-shirts distributed. And I don't know. Did these guys actually do anything for this money? I mean, did you see the Kavanagh twins representing
No.
any of John Ruiz's business interests? Which all of a sudden now, I mean, he's trying to find a non-extraditable country to go visit. No, I don't know what's happening, but what is Nerd Wallet, by the way, Lubie?
It's
I'm seeing this advertised in a lot of
commercial.
sporting, events that I'm watching. Nerd Wallet, what is that?
I know I've seen commercials for Nerd Wallet. I thought it was like a way of managing your money.
Is it a way of losing weight? I mean, what is it? I mean, I have no idea. A Nerd Wallet, but I was thinking, is it similar to this Life Wallet thing, which I had never heard of, which is what all of these John Ruiz enticed ball players represent? Life Wallet, which is what, Libby? What is Life Wallet?
Life Wallet is something I never figured out what it was. Nerd Wallet is, I mean, Andy's, it's a Credit Karma. I don't know what that means. I don't know what Credit Karma is either. So, but Life Wallet, I really don't know what it is. I know it was just their way of funding NIL. But supposedly it was supposed to be worth $1 billion, but after 1 year they were actually at like 3 million.
Turned out he didn't own the shirt on his back. Yeah,
they're actually
very Nevin Shapiro-esque.
Garbage, and it was most of us thought.
Is Shapiro out? I mean, imagine in the offices, this is what it boils down to. Ruiz ends up being bankrupt, and hey, is Nevin out yet?
Yeah, I mean, it's not Nevin.
Supposedly, the only way to sustain the program, that would be horrible.
Supposedly there's other people with money there, but people around college football don't agree with that because you only saw one guy yelling and screaming and crowing, and you only saw recruiting jump the minute he did that. Yeah. And magically he's quiet now, and things are sort of quiet around I don't know if they're bad, but they're quiet. I don't know what UM's doing. The AD the other day tweeted, because Ruiz, all these schools have collectives where they have a group of people come together and they want alums to put in money, but they also can fund it themselves. Ruiz was like, screw a collective. We don't need a collective. We have me. Last week,
I'm your collective, right?
AD out of nowhere is like, collectives are where it's at. And that's when people are like, oh, Ruiz is bullshit. And Mike Wong's in trouble. So I don't know what's doing, really honest.
All right. I don't know if Wong is a pro, though. I mean, but he may not be there, I guess, next year. If he had eligibility left, I'm not sure. I want to say yes to that he was eligible to come back. All right. Otherwise, why would it be news that he declared for the draft? He would just be in the draft at that point. All right. We're going to run. Now, we'll have Mike Mayo's Lunchbox coming your way at 12 o'clock today. That's on South Florida Live. So look forward to that. Talk about some good food. A lot of festivals coming up, Libby. Are you inclined to attend the Pompano Seafood Festival?
We did that year because of you. The fact they moved it off the beach.
I have some bands playing that I wouldn't mind seeing. Friends of mine are out there playing, guys that I know anyway. Might be kind of cool. I don't know. I got to be talked into it. I liked it when it was on the beach better than by the amphitheater. But, the place where it is fine. It's just that it's not on the beach, which, once you got used to that, it's hard. If it had moved from where, it is now to the beach, you would have said, wow, this is where it belonged all the time.
Yep.
Kind of like the Key Biscayne thing. I mean, is it as good? The Key Biscayne tennis tournament was fantastic. Now it's at the Hard Rock, Hard Rock Stadium. Is it better to have it than not have it? Yes, of course it is. But, just not quite the same. All right. We'll see you at 12 o'clock today with Mike Mayo. Mike Mayo's Lunchbox, and we'll find out what the Mayo Man is up to. I haven't seen many food porn pictures from Mayo lately on the texts that he sends. Usually he'll have like a half a dozen dishes that he's ordered at some restaurant. So I guess he really is, kind of unfortunately submerged in, all of the stuff that happened there with the flooding. So hopefully he's drying out because it's going to be a beautiful day today, according to all sources. And we will see you at 12 o'clock. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you next time. As we leave you now that.
The time.
That Scoop knows his basketball, huh? That's great stuff. It's 9 o'clock.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done to my soul.